Hello, souls and demons, and welcome back to the portal. Today I have another part of that little glitch in the Matrix stories. So sit back, grip your seats, and enjoy. Back from the digital grave. When I hear the titles of subreddits, sometimes I wonder if there's something from my own life that could easily be posted to it. This time I brought back an odd event I try not to think about for the most part, but one I think is worth sharing, enough so to make a Reddit account so I can post it. Hello world. For context, I'm 22 now and I was 20 at the time. My mom and dad are separated and my mom lives a state away from my dad and I. Around Christmas time, she was going to be passing through our state visiting family, so we decided to meet at a local cafe and spend the day together. We went to dinner, spent some time at the mall, and had a pretty good time. Her husband took some pictures of us since we rarely got together. My mom sent me the digital photos just after, and some weeks after that, she sent a letter with a physical copy of one of the pictures. It was a small photograph, so I decided to slip it into the corner of my mirror to display it. I believe I recall snapping a picture of said photo in the mirror to send to my mom so I could show her how I displayed it, but not liking how it turned out. But this is where things get more muddled and weird. My dad had recently gotten engaged to his girlfriend and were in the arduous process of buying a house together. My dad managed a small store that seldom got many walk-ins, so he had been filing out paperwork on the clock. When he'd finished, he snapped a picture of a signed document and sent it to his fiancée so she could see. She replied, "Why'd you send me a picture of Seth and his mom?" My dad was confused. On his screen it showed the picture he took of the document embedded in his message. But when he asked her to send back what she'd received, lo and behold, a picture of my mom and I sitting together. My dad told me about it when he got home from work and showed me the pictures and messages. He told me he'd gone all through his phone and that picture was nowhere to be found. I was confused, but inclined to believe nothing happens that can't be somewhat logically explained. Maybe when my mom had sent me the digital pictures, I had texted that one to my dad for whatever reason. I went through our message history and there was nothing. Maybe I'd sent it to his fiancée? No dice. Perplexed, I asked to see the picture again and I noticed something. It wasn't the digital picture. In the bottom corner of the image, you could see a wooden frame. I went to my room and confirmed it. It was the frame of my mirror. I was freaked out but determined. Like I said, I thought I remembered trying to take pictures of it sitting in the mirror. I looked through all my photos and those I had recently deleted. It wasn't there. If I had taken it and deleted it, I worked out the time to find it would have just expired and been permanently wiped from my phone. Maybe I was mistaken on whether or not I had chosen to send it to my mom, so I checked our messages as well. Nothing. I was genuinely perplexed and went back to Dad with my findings. He pointed out that even if I had found the same image on my phone, it wouldn't explain how it's made its way into a conversation between he and his fiancée. It was just unreasonably bizarre. I turned to Google in a last-ditch effort to find some evidence that I wasn't alone in this phenomenon, that perhaps it had happened to someone else and they'd found a worthwhile explanation. I found posts about cloud users winding up with strangers' photos on their phone due to some faulty photo sharing settings, but nothing similar or applicable to my situation. I hadn't enabled any kind of photo sharing options and my dad didn't even have an iPhone. The only thing that linked our phones together was us sharing the same Wi-Fi, and that was a loose link at that. I could never rationalize what happened. His fiancée ended up showing me her phone too, to confirm that her message feed looked different than my dad's, and she had no trace of the photo already in her library. At this point, I wasn't even surprised. The two of them seemed to quickly forget about the odd ordeal, and my mom more or less brushed it off when I shared the story with her. I was left with my own troubled thoughts about what this implied about the level of control and privacy we really have of a photo utterly erased from existence in all capacity can somehow resurface in an unrelated format with no tangible source. To me, this was not so much a glitch in our physical matrix, but a glitch in a realer, less tangible one. What else has potential to show up where it doesn't belong? Needless to say, that's why I've largely pushed the event from my mind. The paranoia does no good, and I just have to accept that it's beyond my understanding and my control. But if anyone out there has a greater understanding of networks and data, and the technological world, maybe you can take this as a more palatable food for thought. But from my perspective, Lord knows I've bit off more than I can chew. Stuck on repeat moment. I was working as an administrator in a clinic on the 10th floor of this building. The building was located on a busy intersection with a not-so-good neighborhood just around the corner. So with that being said, all the restrooms on each floor have a keypad on the door with specific passwords, which you have to punch in order to get into. So I punch in the code and make my way into the restroom when the automated motion sensor light turns on, letting me know I was the only one in the restroom. I start washing my hands when all of a sudden I hear the keypad being pressed from outside the door. I continue to wash my hands as I look up and see the reflection of a thin lady with a purple t-shirt and black leggings, with brownish long braids in the mirror. She rushes in and says hi awkwardly and waves as she makes her way quickly into the last restroom stall. I then turned and started to dry my hands, still at the sink, when I hear the keypad is being pressed again, and I see the exact same lady walk in with a purple t-shirt and the same leggings, and the exact same hair. And once again she says hi awkwardly the exact same way she did right just before. Literally like 1 minute before. I heard a stall closed, and to my surprise she went into the last restroom stall as well. I was flabbergasted. I couldn't understand what I had just seen. I thought maybe she was a twin, so I looked into the first 2 stalls just to discover no one else was in the other 2 stalls. I honestly got full-body chills and left immediately. As I returned to my desk, I tried to make sense of what just took place. I felt like I was in a weird loop. This encounter took about a total of 5 minutes, but it's something that has stayed with me that I just can't explain. Was she a twin who just went into the same stall? Or could I have just witnessed an actual glitch in the Matrix? Dead Man's Hand. I'm sorry if this isn't the right sub for this. My husband has recently taught my son, 8, how to play 5-card draw, and they often play a few hands before bedtime. Last night as they were preparing to play, my husband told my son the story of Wild Bill Hickok and the hand he was holding. 2 aces and 2 eights with an unknown hole card when he was killed. This is where I tell you that my husband absolutely didn't set this up. My son shuffled and dealt the hands. My son's eyes got huge. He showed his hand out of pure excitement and wonder. My husband, the ultimate skeptic, was floored. In his hand were 2 aces, 2 eights, and a 6 of diamonds. How is it possible that this happened as my husband told the story? My experience with glitches. Okay guys, so I have experienced a few things that added up lead me to believe that there are some definite gaps and/or overlapping throughout this plane of existence. These actually all happen with the same person, my best friend Devin. 1. When I was in high school, my theater friends and I would spend a lot of the nights looking into creepy places we could explore to try and get a good thrill. On this evening in particular, it was still light out. Devin and I were kinda just chillin', standing by the porch waiting for our friend Matthew to come outside so we could leave. It was his house. Suddenly, we saw him run past us towards the street, and Devin and I were just looking at each other thinking, WTF? Why did he just sprint to the car? That's kinda cringy, Lamau. But almost instantly following that, Matthew was behind us casually walking out the front door. For years, we thought it was a paranormal experience, but after researching more about glitches in the Matrix, I am thinking that's what it may have been. 2. So on another one of these nights where we were just thirsting for a spooky adventure, we ended up at a place called Step Cemetery. It's a small family graveyard in the proverbial boonies of Indiana that is known for a baby named Lester, whose grave you were supposed to leave offerings on. Just background information. But anyway, Devin and I had been to this place several times at night. It was just a tiny plot of open land with trees surrounding it. So it was a straight shot to walk through. We knew it like the back of our hand. So as we were walking from the front to the back of the graveyard, we noticed a new path that leads to someplace we have never seen before. And we're like, ooh, what's this? As we keep walking, we realized it was the entrance to the cemetery we started at. Almost as if we had been flipped around while we were walking. 3. Finally, another odd thing that only yesterday occurred to me. Could have been another possible glitch. There was this little tunnel near our friend Sabrina's neighborhood that we would always walk to, usually for a smoke spot. It was concrete and had some tasteful graffiti. We would usually spark up in there and proceed to utilize the amazing acoustics to loudly belt opera music while stoned. So we go back the following day to do the same thing, and the tunnel is completely sealed off. Just a giant seamless concrete mass with no evidence of recent construction or wet pavement. I know this one could just be a coincidence, but it just seems odd to me that they would go through the trouble of filling the entire thing with concrete randomly in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, those are my stories, guys. Let me know if you had any similar experiences. Sudden blackout that lasts for several seconds. This happened yesterday during lunch. I was with my 10-year-old sister talking at the dining room. The room is well lit with natural lighting and it was very sunny and bright outside. While we were talking, facing each other, a plane went over our house and suddenly it was black. Like pitch black as if you were closing your eyes. It happened so fast and I brushed it off thinking I blinked. But then my sister asked, "Did you feel that?" and explained the same thing that happened to me. Both of us experienced it at the same time, and I told her maybe it was the plane. She didn't believe me and said there's no way a plane could block the entire sun/sky. She then went to the backyard. Our dining room has a huge glass door leading to the backyard, and asked our parents the same thing. They looked confused and said no. No blackout and the sky is clear with no clouds. This is the second time this has happened. The first time was several years ago, and it happened to the next person beside me too. Me and several of my cousins were gathering at my grandma's house. It was nighttime and very late. Long story short, me and my older sister, who sat very closely, suddenly experienced that blackout moment. It lasted for 2 minutes. We even asked for a flashlight. And while both of us panicked, some of my cousins told us to stop joking and asked what do we mean by that. After it ended, I really don't know what just happened. Nobody experienced the blackout except for me and my older sister. Those things didn't spook me, but it got me curious. I've read some Reddit posts with the same thing, but most of them happened to one person, and could be explained by low blood pressure. But this? I don't know. Maybe I somehow got into a glitch? Who or what did I speak to in my garden? I was 18 and living in a big house in a small village with my mom. We had a large garden with a designated area for our 8 rabbits. Every evening we would take turns to go out to feed the animals before it got dark. However, this particular evening we had arrived home late, so it was already darker than usual. We agreed to feed the rabbits together because it can be quite creepy out in the garden alone at night. I went to the bathroom and told my mom that I would meet her out there in a minute. When I was done, I went straight into the garden where I heard my mom call, "Jess?" as she heard the door close behind me. I answered yes, and saw her upper body pop up from behind the trampoline to make sure it was me. There were no outside lights, however. The combination of the moon, stars, and distant low light of the motorway was enough to illuminate the area to be able to see quite clearly. I was only around 10 meters from her, so I could see her face and her very distinct big curly blonde hair. She said okay and bent back down behind the trampoline to continue feeding the rabbits. I looked down at the grass as I made my way to the bottom of the garden as to not step in any holes dug out by the rabbits during their runaround time. As I made my way down, I spoke to her about how naughty one of the rabbits was acting that day. It took me no longer than 7 seconds to get to the rabbit area. As I approached behind the trampoline where the rabbits' hutches were, I looked up and expected to see my mum standing there, as I had just seen and spoken to her a few moments before. She wasn't there. I looked around for a few seconds, thinking she might be hiding in order to give me a playful scare, when to my horror, I heard the back door of the house close. I looked up quickly and saw my mom walking out into the garden. I immediately speed-walked up that garden towards her so fast, with total terror in my eyes. She asked me what was the matter and I explained to her, "Jesus Christ, I'm never going down there again. I just saw you and spoke to you, and by the time I got down there, you were gone." She looked at me wide-eyed and assured me that she had been in the kitchen getting her shoes on. She is not skeptical at all about these kinds of things, and from the look of my face, she could tell I'd experienced quite a scare, so she believed me straight away. So we were both quite nervous about going back down there. However, the rabbits needed feeding, so we had a nervous laugh and cautiously went down to feed the rabbits together. We had a look around and there was nothing there. I don't know who or what I spoke to in my garden. Maybe it was a glitch in the matrix, and my mom from another timeline appeared to feed my rabbits. Or perhaps there were some darker forces at work that night. I read a little bit about doppelgangers, and how some people recognize them as a warning of death. Not long after this, half of my rabbits dropped dead within a few days of each other. New to this. I don't know where to put this because honestly it's part of a larger story. I feel insane right now. Even my roommate, who is a self-proclaimed witch, seems skeptical. My dad and boyfriend think I'm crazy. I work in a medical office and am very familiar with the faces, voices, mannerisms of patients. I can name a patient based on the way they stand. I don't have to see their face. I can tell who is in the waiting room based on their noises and posture while signing in. My dad comes to this office often, as he needs a decent amount of help with the injury he sustained. Now this day I saw him walk in, stumble over a patient because of his injury and heard him say, "Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me." Without really looking, I pulled a patient file into our program and brought him to a room so the doctor could see him. Having heard my father's voice, I automatically walked to another room and pulled up his file. I walked to the waiting room, yelling his name in my annoying voice that is reserved only for him. No response. I say his name again. No response. So I assume this motherfucker is on his phone, as he is prone to do. So I fake throw a tantrum and fake stomp up front to the waiting room where he is sitting. Plot twist. No dad to be found. Not only that, but by this time, all my other patients have left the office. So it is just me and one other female in the office. No male in this office. Not the bathroom. No one trying to creep, nothing. So where did he go? I texted him and asked if he had quickly stopped in but had to leave, so he didn't say goodbye. Oh no. He told me he hadn't even been there at all today. Normally I would chalk it up to being stressed at work. He hadn't come in, because if he had, he would have told me. It was my own mind playing tricks. But here's the weird part. He was wearing the exact same outfit today. Blue and white striped shirt with jeans and a baseball cap. Something he definitely hadn't worn before I saw him at my office. I acknowledged it and he motioned loony to my sister. It felt like a repeat, if that makes sense.